Hello, this is Phantom Electric Ghost. I have EFFY LOWAN on.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So it's great. I'm gonna do a little brief intro.
Mm-hmm.
Ghost. We interview indie artists from around the world, and right now we have EFFY LOWAN from the UK on, and we're glad to have you on the program.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So we sent you the questions ahead of time, so we're gonna start into that, and we'll talk about your music. But we always like to ask our guests, like, when did you first get into music, and like what age?
So I would say I got into music when I was about 5, and yeah, ever since then I've just been writing. So mainly when I was younger, I just like wrote like poems and stuff, and then it just like developed into songs, and then I got into like learning how to play the guitar and stuff, and then started singing, and yeah, just continue from there.
So you've been doing it from a very young age, which is common among all the singer-songwriters I talk to. It seems that people tend to know that they're musicians, or they know they're artists or painters or actors. So when did you realize early, I guess, because you were writing poetry, that you wanted to not just get into music and become like a classical musician or a studio musician, you wanted to write your own music?
So when I realized, I actually, when I was in school, I managed to like meet Amy Winehouse, and that's when I realized I wanted to like do it professionally and write my own songs and stuff like that. Me like loads, and I like met her out in St. Lucia, so that's how I was like, right, I'm gonna take this seriously and start writing my own stuff, and just went from there.
That's amazing, because like to meet somebody at that caliber is like, as a keyboardist, if I met like Rick Wakeman or Bernie Worrell or somebody like that, it was like, wow, But yeah, that's interesting, because she was like one of the greatest singer songwriters of any generation. So that's interesting. You met somebody that with that kind of reputation or capability.
Honestly, like, it was a really good, like, surreal experience as well. It was just like, wow.
Wow,
it's just amazing.
I was watching a documentary about her. I don't think a lot of people don't realize how much of a songwriter and musician. She played a lot of that stuff on nylon guitar. At the demo, I was watching the producers talking about how they put that album together, Back in Black. And it's just, some people don't realize how deep some artists go in their own music. And that's always been a thing that I like to dive into, the singer-songwriters. I'm in my 50s, and I grew up in the era of listening to like Carly Simon, and the whole idea of albums and a songwriter is actually bringing a voice. Like the Carpenters, this listening to stuff that had like a depth to it, and Amy kind of brought that back. And I thought that was, that's really core. So you realized you had a talent for it. At like what age did you realize that you actually could do something with your own songs and actually start putting down full songs?
So I would say it was probably when I was around about 12, I actually started. So I didn't know like the guitar or anything, but I actually started just writing lyrics and like melodies and everything, and started like singing to them. And then that's when I realized, it'll be quite cool to like, write a song and stuff. So then I basically started to learn the guitar, and then wrote like a few songs on the guitar. And then, my lyrics were like quite deep. So I was just kind of like, it was more kind of rappy kind of lyrics to begin with. And then I like developed like my melody and singing like later on.
Yeah, because your line tagged you as like an urban artist, but I hear like the songcraft of like somebody like an Amy Winehouse in your music. So it's kind of like alternative and rap and R&B, which is a good mix to have. And I see that you have worked as you've progressed in the industry. You met Amy Winehouse. You've worked with some renowned writers and producers, people that worked behind J-Lo and Celine Dion. So yeah, you've got some really good backing,
Yeah.
and on a pretty good label. So how did you get from doing that kind of work as your own on your own, building your songcraft to meeting these people and getting to that connection? Was it after you met Amy that you were able to get to these other people? How did that happen?
No, so after that, so basically I just joined a songwriting course in London, and then just managed to meet like so many people from there, and just like collaborated with so many people. And then just like through that, like it's really like introduced me to like so many different contacts and stuff, and so many different artists and people. And that's just basically where it started, with like collaborations and stuff.
Yeah, so the networking in the industry seems to be like, I'm a keyboardist like that's into like modular synthesis, and there's a lot of people in New York that are into that, and I keep on connecting to people just because I have like, habits, and if we like to dive into modes and we get lost in them.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so I can understand like you get into that kind of collective with all these songwriters as a focus.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm more of a guy that's like a synthesis, but yeah, working with the lyrics being the focus, and so you did those courses. How did that coursework like change what you had already been doing?
So it just basically like managed what, so how did developing the chorus, do you mean?
Yeah. We went to I guess you went into the songwriting classes, and
Yeah.
then you'd already been a songwriter. So how did that did that significantly change the way you went about writing songs, or just added to what you were doing?
So yeah, so they basically taught quite a lot of like how to write songs, which I was, like absolutely fine with. Like some things I think it's best to just be authentic as an artist, and like I don't think it's necessary that you need to like follow any rules, like if you're just an authentic artist. So
Yeah.
it's more literally, it was more about meeting people and just writing loads of songs, and like of loads of different genres, to kind of like identify what your true sound is. And that's how I like developed my new, like my true sound, was just by writing with so many people and doing that. So that's what I did.
So when you start with a song, you said you were a lyricist, kind of like taking poetry and
Mm-hmm.
turning it into songs, and then you got the guitar. A lot of times when you have people who are like play instruments like pianos or guitars, they kind of started with a chord arrangement, or they started with something on a piano. Do you usually start with your words, or do you start with your music?
I tend to start with the music. So like I tend to just like freestyle loads of different melodies when I'm writing songs, and then like a word will come out and I'm like, oh, like that's quite a good line for a song, and then I'll focus on that kind of. And usually like with freestyles, I find it's what I'm feeling at the time as well, so it like really resonates with me. So I'll just do, whatever like flows like really well and just goes, and it just comes out, which is good.
Yeah, I was watching some documentaries on musicians, and it was interesting. Like Tom Petty was talking about how some of his most famous songs, his band had all the music, and then he kind of just came in and did like stream of consciousness.
Nice.
Um, uh, and a lot of times he just, I think it's because you have this kind of, a diary of all these reference points in
Mm-hmm.
your head when you're a songwriter. And if you hear something, suddenly that activates something in your memory and you pull something out. So it's not exactly just free forming, just because you've kind of developed these ideas, and something triggers you to pull one of these ideas out,
Yeah.
and maybe it's even in your subconscious, you don't realize. But
Yeah.
I find that stream of consciousness type of writing, from like Jim Morrison to Hendrix to the way Dylan used to do stuff, it seems to be a good way to kind of just let the tape
Mm-hmm.
run some ideas, and go back and kind of find the golden nuggets in there.
Yeah, exactly. And I do that like with pretty much like all of my songs. Like I've got so many like video footage of like loads of random like songs and ideas and stuff, and I just like go through like it all and just like be. But to be honest with you, like when I know, like I just like get a feeling, I'm like, oh, this is actually cool, I'm gonna like continue and make this into a song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so do you just put it down with your phone? 'Cause I see people like nowadays they take like a video note or they take a note, audio note on their phone, or they go to like a Fostex
Mhm.
like 4-tracker, or what? How do you have like a home studio and you put it down on your DAW, or you just do it on your
Yeah,
phone? Or
so I put it first of all, I put it down as a voice note, and then I will then sit down and write the lyrics, and then I've got a home studio, so then I will then record it properly into that.
so your home studio like focused on like a digital audio workstation, and maybe which one do you use, or you have like a lot of people are getting into analog gear and all kinds of stuff now, but how do you actually go about it?
So I just use Logic Pro with an interface and connect it with my mic.
Cool. Yeah, a lot of people in bedroom studios now seems to be like where things are, especially with coronavirus.
Yeah, I had
People's bedroom studios becoming like their primary workstation.
yeah, I had to invest in a mic because I was like, I'm not letting Corona, like stop the flow of music, and I had to
Yeah,
get like
yeah.
some
But
vocals recorded. So I was like, right, I'm gonna invest in a good mic, and also like I feel so much more comfortable like recording from home as well because it's just like in your own time and you can like really like connect with it.
so which mic did you go with? Because I'm kind of a studio rat, so I'm always interested.
Okay, right. So I went with a Avatone CV12.
Oh, that's nice. Uh, yeah, so yeah, I mean that's part of the secret sauce of all music. You can go back to like what Sinatra was doing
Mhm.
in the '50s. Like the mics are such an important part of like why people go to studios, I guess. And when
Yeah.
you're building your home studio, it's like building that. And I guess as a vocalist, it's even more important. Like if you're like a drummer, has different intentions on what type of mics they're using, or if you're a saxophone player, you're doing different types of things. But yeah, so as a vocalist, were you going for a certain sound
Um,
that you were looking for?
I just like so I just basically just went from recommendations. So my friend actually
Mm-hmm.
recommended like she recommended it to me and said, yeah, like this is a good mic. It's good for like lower voices. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I just went with that and also like looked at the reviews and stuff. So yeah, and then built myself a home studio booth as well, which is made out of duvets and wood. Just for now.
So yeah, so your MIDI interface, you have like a MIDI keyboard. You use like a more of a launch pad kind of grid based interface.
It's
Do
MIDI
you use more?
keyboard.
Yeah. Okay. Do you find that using the piano type of interface, like a MIDI keyboard focused, is easier to compose like a full song on?
See, I just basically lay down ideas on the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I can't play much piano.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I do is I just like collaborate with like producers and beat makers and stuff like that. And yeah, we just do it like that.
And then you just kind of put it together. Yeah, within the grid, do you do some of your own production if somebody sends you something, or you wait for the producer to do that, or do you try to come up with some of the soft synth stuff that's in the DAWs?
No,
Do you
no.
do it?
So yeah, production wise, like I like say like how I like it like sounding and stuff and give like loads of references, and yeah, I just let the producer come up with like something really creative.
So your demos are primarily like a guitar focused demos.
Not always. So sometimes it's piano, and yeah, so it's just a mixture of things. Like I try and get like an organic sound. I like to have like a live like a piano in there or a guitar in there in any of my songs. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like a lot of the band, I've been talking to like traditional rock bands, which are kind of like not as in vogue as they used to be.
Mm.
But the last couple of bands I've talked to, and they've always been kind of big purveyors of organic instruments like guitars and pianos, just to get that feel.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of living in an age where there's so many electronic things you can do within a DAW that
Mm-hmm.
aren't exactly acoustic instruments,
Yeah.
but there's still like a need in music to me to bring an acoustic instrument in for that feel.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that way as a songwriter? That sometimes you want that kind of intimacy that a piano or a guitar gives?
Yeah, I like to like express like I like emotion in my sound like with my stuff. So Like I always quite like either like a sad type piano or like that guitar feel and stuff like that. That's what usually or violins, even violins.
Yeah, because like if you're listening to Amy Winehouse, got that kind of Motown vibe.
Yeah, that's really
You
cool.
brought in a lot of the acoustic instrument kind of production, like traditional, like 1960s, 70s production techniques to her stuff was kind of like the signature. It was kind of like this kind of, well, not neo soul, it was like a retro soul.
Yeah.
But she was doing something fresh with her sound, with her personal lyrics. And that's always kind of driven me as a singer-songwriter vibe. I've always been drawn to that.
Yeah.
You know, so do you feel like, I guess as you've name-checked some people who have that kind of feeling, is that what drives you the most when you listen to music? Like if your reference points, if you're going to name-check people, I know you have Amy, but who else would you be inspired by?
I would say Sam Tomkins. Just like I go for like artists that actually show the emotion in their voice and also in their lyrics. So that's like that's the main thing I'm attracted by. So like NF, Sam Tomkins, like they're like both brilliant artists and brilliant lyricists, and you can really hear the emotion, and that's what I'm attracted to.
So the songs I've seen on your Spotify, you have the new single for 2020, "Let's Go Back." Can you maybe talk about how that got developed? Because you're the primary writer on it, from what I can see on it. And so, how did that come about? And is it part of a bigger project?
Yeah. So "Let's Go Back" was I was basically freestyling on my guitar, and then I had the melody of the rap. I just like started doing it, and then I basically was like, oh, this is quite a cool melody. And then one of the lyrics that I said was something about like "let's go back" and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this is quite a cool concept. And I was feeling it at the time because I was working in a cafe. And it was just like, working 7 days a week. I couldn't do like anything that I really enjoyed because I was just busy trying to make money. Yeah. And yeah, so basically just did the guitar to it and just wrote the lyrics. So I wrote the first verse of the rap and then left it for like 3 months, and then managed to write the rest of the lyrics. So yeah, and then my friend helped me with the piano on it and also with the chorus melody, and then just sent it to the producer and just basically like just had like the piano down and a rough draft of the vocals and just asked her to just, do like an organic kind of like different, unique sound to it.
So you had said you actually started working on it, then you kind of like put it down. What made you come back to it?
So I knew that like for some reason I wanted to like come back to it. So I put it down, and I don't usually do that when I write. Like if I've got a song, I usually write it, finish it that day, and it's done. But for some reason I was like, no, there's like better lyrics. So what I did was I literally just wrote down like loads of words like to do with that subject, and just like paragraphs of like in my notes. It's just like crazy. And then just like one day, like both of the other two verses like came out, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And yeah, obviously it was part of the process for that song. So yeah.
Yeah, some songs are like that because they feel like I'm a big music historian, and some songs, like if you think about like Bruce Springsteen, his famous, the track that he did, "Born to Run," it took months because they just kept on getting at it with this kind of wall of sound, and it just never seemed to be done. But where other songs are just like boom, just off the cuff, like Nebraska, like he just did it on a 4-track Tascam in a hotel, and it just kind of just boom, it is there. It was like a demo. He put it out the way he wrote it. It was pretty much, so some things kind of, you never get, people always ask, songwriters, well, how do you do it? And it's kind of like how you service the song. Some songs kind of come from the muse. It comes out of you and what's out there, and you kind of tap into it and you never know what's going to service the song. One day you could be, just doing like field recordings, and you find some weird sound in the forest, and you do something.
Yeah.
You never know. It's hard to pin down.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Did go on.
Oh, I was just saying, like, it's all part of the process, isn't it? And it's like, it's nice that like not every song is exactly the same, like how you write it and stuff. Like some songs will be easy, like, and quick to write, and then others it may take a bit of time, but like it's all good, like there's no rush on it. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, it's weird. It's interesting. Like if you're a singer-songwriter, you're kind of a solo act. You have, you might work with other producers and work with people, and you kind of have this vision. But then if you're like in a band, which I've been in bands and I've been solo and I've worked on those, it's just a totally different vibe when you're in a band. Like if you're in a 4-piece like rock band, then you might have, everybody's putting their piece in. Everybody's kind of changing the song, and it just shapes from the personalities in the band.
Yeah.
And then you're a solo artist and you work with producers. Do you find it's kind of like when you're working with your producer, it really shapes your idea?
Yeah.
Or do you have a lot of do you always agree with your producer, or do you have like you kind of go back and forth, or trust your producer to kind of change it to be what it could be? Or do you have a very specific vision for what you want to do and then kind of say, well, it needs to go this way?
Well, I always think so one of the person that produced it was Hattie, and she like lives up in Newcastle, and she literally like got me straight away, like the sound and everything. And I always believe like, because she like specializes in that, like she will do it justice. And obviously like I've sent like reference tracks and everything, I've said how I want it to sound. She'll send me like a rough draft of like, oh, this is what I'm thinking, like let me know your thoughts on it and stuff. And it just like flows. Like there's not been like any point where I'm like, oh, actually no, like I don't like any of it. Like maybe there's like a few things like, oh, maybe change the drum sound a little bit and stuff like that, but it just like, it's just about like getting to know your producer and just like working, like finding the right people that you work really well with.
Yeah, it's kind of like chemistry, I would say.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a band, like if you're in a band and you go like, because I'm a keyboard player, I tend to write demos. I'll tend to be able to write the whole thing, and then I'll come into the band. Like the drummer will take my 808 track or my 909 track, and I turn it into a real percussion track. And I usually would defer to, okay, yeah, the drummer's going to take what I do and make it amazing, because that's what drummers do.
Yeah.
And then a bass player might take my bass line I did on a Moog, and they're going to do what a bass player can do. And they, bass players, when you get it to it, I mean, a lot of them are very melodic. I mean, people who don't listen to the bottom end of songs, how melodic bass players can be is just amazing. They can be just as, as melodic as a guitar player or a keyboard player putting things down. And it's just amazing how people, when they work together, how things get interpreted.
Yeah.
You could bring something, and then what you get back. Like Tom Petty used to say of the Heartbreakers, like he would give them something and they always made it better than what he imagined it could be. When he bring it in, it's like everybody in the band would just bring their like A game to it, and suddenly it was like more than what he expected.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's kind of like when you got the right chemistry.
Yeah.
With the people you work with, so you feel like that's the kind of relationship you have with the people you work with.
Yeah. And that's all you need, like really, like it's all part of like trusting each other, and like, and also like taking advice as well. Like that's one like thing that I love, is just taking advice from other people and their opinions and listening to them. But yeah, I just think like working together, collaborating with people, and just, listening to people that know what they're doing and stuff is just like the best process.
So before coronavirus, did you physically go to the studio and work with your producer in real time?
Yeah.
Or did you always kind of do back and forth, maybe not doing that way because of corona? Now people have to kind of send their stuff in and then get it back.
I went up to Newcastle for a week, and we basically worked on so at the time it was an EP, So we basically worked on 4 songs there, which I'm probably like the other 3 songs I'm planning on releasing like later on in the year. But that was one of.
So that session did 4 songs. You just put out 1 or 2.
Yeah, I just put out 1 at the moment. So that was the first one, but I think I'm gonna release the other ones later on after I've released like some newer stuff, which doesn't make any sense, I know, but it does in my head. It's like all part of the plan.
Would these be a part of like an EP because they were recorded together, or were you just doing as singles?
Yeah, so I was gonna do EP, but I just I've like done a lot of like marketing research and stuff, like, and they just basically said at the moment, like, if you're starting out, it's good to just release singles because like Spotify only like promotes one of your songs if you release it as an EP. So I kind of want to give like each song like the best possible chance, you know. So I'm just going to release singles, and then hopefully one day I will do an album. Like that is my goal, is to just, I know like albums aren't like particularly popular at the moment, but I just want to do something like really different and cool, you know, like start from the start to the end, and it be like a complete, like, I don't know, like story and everything. So yeah.
That's the one thing as a music fan, you know, I grew up, I'm showing my age, I'm in my 50s, and I would go pick up my childhood in the 70s, right? So like everything was vinyl or 8-track, and you had to listen to a whole project. So from Carole King to the Beatles to, you know, getting a Pink Floyd album, you didn't jump around.
Yeah.
You got that vinyl and you sat and listened to Wish You Were Here the whole thing through. And that's kind of like, because I come from that era, I still kind of album oriented.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of lament the fact that that's not as big now, because I do like to listen to musicians. And I think musicians, when they do an album, it's kind of like reading a great novel.
Yeah.
And when you've got a good album, you know, like a Sgt. Pepper's or like Elton John, The Yellow Brick Road, you have something that really connects and tells like this vibe. Like, you know, it's nothing like it to me. So it's cool when you can actually have that kind of complete thought as a whole project.
Yeah.
Though I know that today's market with streaming, and I have these questions about streaming, you can, you know, get each song to have an audience, and you can get them on these playlists, but then it becomes a little more disjointed in terms of the full breadth of what the artist is doing.
Yes.
So I've always been a big supporter of anybody who wants to continue with the long play format.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool, but that's just, you know, I understand where the kids are today, where other people are. But so in terms of live performing, were you doing live performance before COVID? Or
no, I wasn't. I've like done probably about 4 performances, I reckon. Like I've never been like a live performance person, but that is like definitely something that I want to do, like after Corona, like, well, after, like, you know, everything's kind of, you know, back. But yeah, that is something that I'm definitely going to work on. And I think it's like mainly because like I didn't like have any songs out and stuff, and now I want to just like promote my songs, I want to perform and stuff like that. So that is something that I'm definitely looking into doing, and I'm hoping to like find someone that can, because I do quite, like, most of my stuff is kind of beaty and stuff like that, so I'm kind of looking into finding someone who will be able to like mix kind of like live on stage as well, and do that kind of thing with me. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So are you looking to operate more like a DJ type of set with a DJ behind you, or work as a full band backing you?
I wouldn't say like a DJ. I would say like more kind of like someone that has like, I don't know, like Machine MK3 or something, and can do like the live mixing and stuff like that.
Oh, somebody running like a full, maybe even has a synth, and maybe has any of the, like if you like an MPC, like an Akai MPC, I'm a big promoter of that. A lot of hip hop guys use that. But I like to use alternative like methods of MIDI, control, because I'm a keyboardist, so I'm kind of like a one-man progressive rock kind of thing.
Nice.
So my setup is I have like a lot of sequencers and a lot of analog gear and, you know, rolling keyboards and stuff. And you can, you know, with foot pedals and all kinds of control things, you can control like everything. So you can come out not like with a Pioneer CDJ, you can come out with like real synths and kind of do it like Keith Emerson used to do it, or the way Yes used to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the original electronic music. People seem to have forgotten, like, original electronic music was all this big gear.
Yeah.
And these big stacks like the Tony Bank, you know, would have from Genesis. That's the kind of thing that I like to do.
Nice.
But yeah, it's kind of like a lost art because everybody can just go out with their CDJ. But there are bands that are getting back into it. You know, in Berlin, there's a big sound for that. And London, there's a lot of guys with modular synths out there doing that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of people out there now that know how to actually, you know, be like a musical director.
Yeah.
And go out and do that kind of stuff. So it sounds like maybe you're looking for a musical director and
yes.
that kind of capability.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, once everything gets out there, would you go outside of the UK to do that?
Yeah.
Would you travel like to the States?
I'm up for like doing like anything. Like I would love to. Like that would be such a good opportunity if I ever like had a chance to like go out of the UK and do some stuff. I would love it.
Yeah, it seems like the festival scene, you know, once they get started, is a really good opportunity for a lot of artists because they can get on these big, like Glastonbury and all these other big festivals. They have these smaller stages and they have the big ones, and you know, some of the indie bands are able to get into those smaller stages on those big festivals.
Yeah.
And I actually got a booking agent just before Corona, and then suddenly Americans, we haven't been doing so well, so now we can't travel.
Oh.
So I got a booker. They could get me to Europe or get me to Asia, and then suddenly I can't go because Americans were like we're banned because we're bad behavior.
That is so annoying.
I'm like, okay. Yeah, I was like, oh great! Like the first time I got a good booking, now I can't even get it. Yeah, but I mean, we're all looking forward as artists to figure out what to do. Have you figured out how to do anything in terms of like live stream, like maybe unplugged performances or live stream stuff in the UK? Is there anything going on like that you would do that before you do physical live stuff?
Yeah, so I was thinking about doing like live videos and stuff like that, and then I was like looking into, have you heard of OBS software?
Yeah, I heard of that.
Yeah, so I was looking into that, and oh god, that was a nightmare. Like I spent 2 days trying to figure it out. And I couldn't figure it out, which is so annoying. But yeah, I have like been looking in, like I did like a live performance of Let's Go Back when it was released and stuff. Like I enjoy, like, from that live performance, I really enjoyed doing it. Like, so I have like no problem with doing like the live streaming and stuff. But yeah, just like trying to figure it out.
How to do it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, for years I've been using a tripod with an Apple iPhone with a thing called a roll and go mixer that actually lets me connect to my Zoom R24, and I can get a full, like, high quality audio feed into my cell phone on the tripod, go on to Twitch, get a good landscape view of my whole bedroom studio. And I've been doing like live performances like that.
Oh, nice.
And it comes out pretty good because the go, you know, roll and go mixer is a cheap interface that turns your iPhone into like a Zoom camera. I mean, I've been looking into getting better cameras, like a Zoom Q8 or something. But yeah, the iPhones today have pretty good cameras.
They do.
And if you get this little interface, it just lets you do it. I've been live streaming for the last like 2 years with this thing.
Wow.
And you can do it on Facebook, you do it on Twitch, you can do it on Instagram. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff going on with that. A lot of people are starting to do even more. I'm actually branching out into a video podcast version of this program with this tool called StreamYard.
Oh, cool.
Where you can actually do video podcasts. And unlike this one that's not live, the stream video podcast of the show actually can go live on my Facebook channel.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we've had maybe 4 experiments with the people we've talked to, actually the bands who wanted to try it. So we've done like 4 of them so far. We have done like 300 of these audio only and 4 of the video.
Wow.
we're gonna try to get more of the video going, but it's kind of dependent on what the artist has. Like if the artist doesn't have a good video capability, then it's harder to do.
Yeah.
Like with the person we're interviewing. But yeah, I think it seems like the net and streaming and all this technology is gonna give artists a lot of different ways to survive this kind of era of not being able to do live shows. Had that, I guess up to this point, you haven't been a live act, so it hasn't been a big detriment. But to a lot of artists, it seems like live performing is how they primarily
get their income. Paid. Yeah.
So has that been something that I know you've been working on building your career and getting out there? But have you figured out how you're going to navigate the way the industry is?
Yeah, so I've just for this whole of lockdown, I've just been researching loads about the music industry and the music business and marketing and stuff like that. So that's all I've been doing is researching and planning. So yeah, so it's just different ideas and stuff, and also I'm looking into doing my own merch line and stuff like that. So I've just been looking into all of that stuff, which is good.
Well, it seems like, I think streaming, one of the things we always ask people what they think about streaming and the modern technology. I think streaming kind of reminds me of being a child of the 70s. College radio was how indie bands used to get out, right? So streaming is kind of like the college radio of the day, where I heard REM was on the college radio station coming out of UMass Amherst in Massachusetts. I heard some college kid, started playing them.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hear them on a regular radio. And it kind of seems like the way streaming allows a lot of indie bands to get out there the way REM did before they got big.
Yeah.
But it's worldwide. It's not just that college radio can only go so far, and now you can actually reach all over the world.
Yeah, which is amazing. It is the technology nowadays. Being an artist is just really good for
But the only I think the only problem with it is the pay rate on it.
Yeah,
it's like percentages of pennies. You can't, unless you're super big and you're doing billions of streams or millions or hundreds of millions of streams. Your income level is not as high as it would have been if you physically were selling a download or a CD.
Yeah.
So a lot of bands I talk to, they sell T-shirts. They sell posters. They sell buttons. And when they go on tour and they play in New York or they play in Los Angeles, they'll sell a vinyl record that they created at a very low level, maybe 1,000 copies, and they'll make a lot of money, $30, $50 a pop.
Yeah.
On the merch, but more money than they make on their records.
I know. It's such a shame, but yeah.
It just seems that the only other thing you can do as an artist to get into sync licensing, doing production work for other bands if you've got a really good studio, or guesting on other people's projects and stuff.
Yeah.
But features, it seems to be how artists are navigating. Getting to be parts of collectives that go and do tours and kind of self-support. So then they get a bigger audience, so they get a bigger piece of the pot. So it seems like that's what, at least in the US, a lot of what's going on.
Yeah. And have you
thought to work with a collective of artists in the UK, or more of a solo artist? Have you thought to link up with a collective or anything?
No, not really. I would love to work with some of my the people that will influence me, definitely. But yeah, mainly, to be honest with mainly the people that I work with, I actually find we communicate on Instagram. And it's mainly the people in US that I work with because I don't know why, it just happens. So it's all good.
Do you find that Instagram, out of all the social media platforms, is seems to be the most musician friendly, or do you find other platforms to be as good?
Well, I think TikTok will be amazing. I don't personally use it, but I think that is a really good opportunity for musicians to get on TikTok. Definitely. I found Instagram really works for me. It's more about the engagement and actually communicating with people that I enjoy about Instagram. And yeah, Facebook, I don't really like use that as much, just because like Instagram, you can like find so many like artists and like songwriters and stuff, and like just basically like communicate with them. And I just find like it's very, very easy to do that. But yeah, if I reckon like TikTok is probably the way forward. But yeah, and Instagram definitely for artists.
Yeah, Instagram has been the primary booking tool for this program.
Yeah, yeah.
It just is interesting is if somebody digs one of my postings and then there happen to be an artist and I say, oh, do you want to be on the show? And that's like how I book 90% of the people.
Nice. Yeah.
And it's just immediate, can the direct message, and you can put clips of your work, and you can see their work. And it's just, it's an immediate experience. There's more, it's dynamic. And nowadays you can do like little highlights and like these little loops and, 10-minute, over 15-minute projects and things on it. So it's getting better all the time what you can do.
Yeah.
It just seems to be a very artist-friendly platform.
It does.
Not that I'm working for them, but yeah, I find it easier to connect than even YouTube or Facebook. The engagement on YouTube and Facebook. The only thing I would say is my engagement when I do a live show on Facebook, I get a pretty good engagement if I do a live show. If I do some kind of live performance on Facebook, I'll get a lot of people coming in.
Yeah.
But it's on the little micro postings, I don't get as much engagement as I do on Instagram, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But you use the tool for what it can do. You think it's okay, that's how it works. Then I'm okay. Well, I'm gonna kind of use its better capabilities. So what do you think about the current state of the music industry? We've been kind of talking around it.
Yeah.
But what is your feel after you've been doing all that research of what you think, the way forward is for people or yourself?
So I would like say it's definitely just getting out there like on social media, like being consistent with social media. I definitely think TikTok is probably one of the way forwards, like in regards to like a lot of people, like musicians and artists are getting quite big if their song goes viral on TikTok and stuff like that. But depending on what kind of like artist you are. So like if you're like into like doing like something that you think, oh, this will definitely like go viral on TikTok, like go for it. But like if you're an artist that doesn't do that kind of thing, either way it doesn't matter. Like I think it's just all about like pushing through and just being as authentic to yourself as possible and just kind of like trusting the process. So yeah, that's I know, like, because there's not many like live gigs and that, and quite a lot of artists are doing like live streaming, which is cool. Yeah. But there are like artists that don't like social media either, which is like completely fine, So yeah, it's difficult. Like I think there's no like what you have to do. There's no right answer. Yeah. It's like whatever you feel is good for you as an artist. It's your journey. Do it. Like that's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, I would just like the engagement of the industry to kind of get it to, where people could value, the music at the same level they value like video games.
Yeah.
Because like if you talk to a young person in their 20s or, and they'll spend like hundreds of dollars on video games for an Xbox.
Yeah.
But if you ask them to spend like $10 on a CD, they're like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you get that connection to that market? I've been looking at getting, music onto video games. I've been talking to like music game developers.
Yeah.
And it's like that's a way to get doing electronic music is kind of easy to get into that, because then you could actually do something that fits what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, even if you get a song played in a game, you can get one of your songs into a big game, then you can actually get pretty good royalty levels. They're actually sometimes a bit better than what the standard ones are now for like Spotify and Apple.
Yeah.
So you're like, whoa, that's a whole nother market. Is a way to get into it.
Yeah, and it's the same with like Netflix and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you can get sync licensing and get a song like a 30-second like part of of a theme song of a Netflix cable show, or you even get to be in the bulk of the show as like background music. That the sync licensing deals are really good compared to what we normally get. And so, yeah, it seems like you just have to be innovative and figure out how to get into these new places. Like music is used everywhere. It's used in advertising, it's used in film, it's used. So it's not there a lack of places to get it to. It's just trying to find out how to get there.
Yeah, it is. And they say like literally like your music should be like 20% creating and 80% marketing, which is like true because like what's the point in making something that no one's going to hear? You might as well like spend a lot of time doing your marketing and finding out who your target audience are so you can push it out to them. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Like usually record labels do that for you, do the marketing side, but as an independent artist, that is something that you would have to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that how, as an indie artist, what you do. You know, I sometimes from time to time I'll link with a label. I've got 2 little independent distribution deals I'm doing to see if they actually can do what they say they can do. Yeah, it's just kind of the freedom to be an independent artist. You know, you see big acts like Pearl Jam and Radiohead. They dropped their labels. They went independent.
Yeah,
because they're like they can just do what they want. And being able to give your fans, like Pearl Jam gives people like every copy of every live performance they ever do.
Yeah.
People can just go get it because that's the way they want to run it. If they were on a label is like, I'm not going to do that. We're not going to let you do that.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of advantage of being independent. You can say, well, I'm going to give the fans what they want, you know, and what I want to do, rather than what the label thinks I should do.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's where a lot of people as artists are like, okay, they like that freedom to have that kind of fan base, you know, if they can get people to be as dedicated as like the Grateful Dead fans, that's kind of like everybody's goal.
Yeah, it is.
to get them to like, you know, be in that kind of commune. They're going to get in the VW bus. They're going to go to every single show you ever do, buy all your records and be there like every night. That's kind of like what you want.
Yeah.
That connect. You know, at least like when I grew up, that was like the goal.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking about doing it for the rest of 2021? Besides like maybe working on the additional songs, do you got any collabs that you're working on?
Yeah, people? So I've got quite a few collabs that I'm working on. So yeah, it's like pretty much most of it's been through Instagram because like I haven't managed to actually meet anyone in a while because of obvious reasons. But yeah, like so many collabs, it's ridiculous. But I've like recently, like ever since Corona happened, like I've experienced like really bad writer's block, which is really weird. Like usually I can write like, you know, and yeah, for some reason I'm just like, I think it might be because like I'm used to like kind of like doing my own thing in the daytime and then like getting like inspiration from things that happen in the daytime and stuff like that. And yeah, but I am like back working and doing collabs with people, which is good.
Do you find that collabs give you like more creative inspiration because you get like a file from somebody or somebody sends you a track and then suddenly that kind of gives you the inspiration because it's somebody else's like different vision?
Yeah, I mean, I just go with like whatever like feels right. Like if someone sends me like, I've had like a couple of things that people have sent me over and I always like select the one that I like resonate with. And, you know, if like a certain topic and stuff like happens to me, like that's how I generally like connect with stuff. Like, and that's how I generally write, is from a personal side of things.
That gives you that like the trigger, you know.
Yeah.
It's like when you're, if you get the right, like if you're a solo artist and it's just you're just taking everything that happens, then you have less like social interaction because of Corona. Because you can't go everywhere you used to go, you can't see everybody you used to see, and so then you're kind of like, okay, well, how am I going to get my inspiration? And you know, it's interesting. I've talked to some bands that they go back into their diary and read all the stuff they did like 5 years ago or 3 months ago, and then they like, oh, you know, they go out, they try to learn a new instrument, or they take a class or something. but yeah, it's just interesting. Some bands have had like your issue where they hit the roadblock because a lot of their stuff was like from being on the road.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of like took their life on the road and turned it into music. And then now they're like, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm just like, watching Netflix. So I'm having a harder time getting inspired by that.
Yeah, it's
or they
weird.
take they go inside more. Like I was talking to some artists who've been able to like, they've gone really deep inside and they've come up with like very personal stuff. That's like, wow, that's cool because they've been able to kind of do a Bob Dylan, Carole King kind of go inner and then pull all this stuff out. So it's interesting how far people go as a singer-songwriter. Do you ever feel like sometimes as a writer that you are showing too much, or do you feel like you got that kind of worked out how much you give the audience of yourself?
So I feel like I don't have like any boundaries like with my writing. Like I only just like go with like whatever feels right and whatever comes out. I don't like think, oh, I probably shouldn't say that just in case people think, like I don't look at it kind of like in that way. So I just write how I feel, and that's just like kind of like how I process things myself. So like writing is kind of like therapy as well, so I just do it, and I just like connect with the emotion and stuff, and so I don't really have any boundaries.
I've talked to a lot of artists that try to have this kind of thing where they have this kind of stage persona even when they're writing, that they kind of get in this zone and they don't feel uncomfortable. They like if they actually are in their speaking voice or their like non-artist self, like when they're just interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, they find that kind of communication more like a lot less comfortable than when they actually are, on their mic in a studio booth or in their home studio, that they are able to kind of get into that like other version of themselves, which is, might be the truer version of themselves that they don't show the rest of the world, but when it comes out in the music.
That's
and it's very cathartic,
I think that's like with me, like because I'm quite like a closed book, like I don't really like share like any of my emotions and stuff, but like when it comes to writing and like music, I would like quite happily do it. And it's so weird.
I mean, a famous example, like you look at a guy like Prince. Prince had a hard time talking to people, but he had the stage persona that was totally wildly different than his own kind of shy self. That what he would get into in some of the deeper tracks is like way more than what you could ever get out of him in a conversation. And it just seems to be like, if you look at a lot of artists, you see that kind of pattern. And it's just interesting, like it's like reading a novel again. Like you get into some singer-songwriters and they're pretty much telling you everything.
And
you were like, well, you don't need to interview them. Just listen to the material.
Yeah, exactly. Just listen to the music.
Listen to all the music, and then you can kind of get the answer because they're in there. So that's always interesting to me. It tells you who has actually listened to the music. But we're happy that you were on the show. This is part of something we've been doing for 2 years.
Cool.
And we're on 11 platforms on the podcast world. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Radio Public and Google Play. We're on 11 platforms. As soon as this is put together, it takes about an hour, less than an hour sometimes. It'll go out, start to migrate through the net on all these platforms, and we're going to promote it on our blog page and on our Instagram as well, where we have pretty good integration with Spotify. So the Spotify version of this podcast will be available as a highlight story.
Nice.
On our Instagram channel, and people can go right to it once we push it up.
Cool.
And so we're glad to have you on the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was nice. Nice chatting to you.
So everybody go out and listen to EFFY LOWAN on whatever streaming service you have. Particularly, we're on Spotify, so listen there. But so we're happy that you came on the program. And please, everybody, check out EFFY LOWAN on all streaming services. And we hope to have you on the program again when you have another project to talk about.
Yes, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
And you. Bye.
Bye.